All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Delegate Office Hour. I'm Thomas Flood with GovComms, and we're here to discuss topics. And I wanted to start off. I think we asked if you could just throw something in the chat there, a smiley face, or see how you're feeling, just to get the vibe of the crowd here today. I'll do that for another minute. And while we're doing that, I wanted to let you know the poll closed for this week, and it was to talk about the topic was legal work on MIP65 Special Purpose Fund was the winning topic. That is the topic we can lead off with, or if we want to we have some other things. There's a lot of stuff that's going on, obviously, in MakerDAO, but that was the winning weekly topic poll. So as folks continue to come in, let's see if we got any more in the chat here.
Hey, mind giving me sharing rights again? My computer just totally blew up before when I tried to share.
We're trying. For Raphael he has nominated himself as the resident DJ, so I'm gonna try to give him some co-host rights. There you go, and you should have that. All right, so Raphael, you can work on that, and I will go ahead and open the floor. One of the things too that we had was the delegate priority surfacing tool. Raphael, I know you had something on that. I don't know if you wanted to open just briefly on the update on that, and then we could talk about the weekly topic.
Yeah, let me know about the sound level. Like, I think you should be some nice little pretty basic.
There we go.
Let me know.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So actually, Tim suggested that to grow that we use JokeDAO, and I think that's an amazing idea because like we have literally like all the tools we need to have a prioritization tool with like all the bells and whistles. So I think I'm gonna publish a post early next week and kind of have because there's like a couple of questions. Do we want to distribute to all MKR holders? Do we want that to be on a claim by claim basis? Do we want tokens to be transferable and so forth? And I'll outline all these options and then have this, like, we can decide, I think. But I think that's like an interesting next experiment for me.
Okay. David in the chat said, can we turn the sound down just a little bit? Just a little bit. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Raphael, for that opening. Tim, I'm going to go to you. Got your hand raised?
Yeah, so just some context setting there. Raphael and I had like a short DM exchange just talking about the JokeDAO platform. I've been participating as a JokeDAO dad joke connoisseur every week, which has been super fun. They are a bottoms up governance tool. It's pretty sweet. And so Raphael and I just felt like it would be the sort of thing that is super interesting. The other context is that I went to GovAlpha's office hours, so Shell for office hours, and talked to Peyton. More long-term, JokeDAO might be something useful for maker governance as a sandbox. So we could use it for speed running RFC or something like that. I don't know. I had a couple of good ideas. I put them in the growth channel in the Discord. And so there's two pieces here. There's a short-term thing that actually gets everyone on the same page and uses the platform, which is what's called a joke race. They promote it on Twitter. We asked the growth team if they would do it. They seem lukewarm or a yes, so that's good. We need to just verify that we can do that, set up the timing to do the joke race, and at that point, writing this forum post is probably the best thing to do. So the only thing that's missing here, Raphael, is just to get you connected with their founder, David, because they're also writing a forum post. That's what they do all day. JokeDAO is entirely community run. It's grant funded. There's no other outside sources of funding. So they write grants all day, they write forum posts all day to just introduce the platform, show what they do, and they're iterating in public, which is super awesome. And yeah, I just think we need to shake things up a little bit in governance and try different processes that are really low stakes. And so you're absolutely right. Forum post is great. Those are some of the questions we should ask. You know, there's a really cool mechanism to the thing where you create a contest. If anyone's familiar with the mirror right race, you set up the parameters to win the race, right? But the difference is that the voting of who wins on whatever submission is based on like a token airdrop, but you can also do a token claim and you can pick different chains. So we could actually, when we get to this forum post, start to think through how we want to use different chains and JokeDAO on different chains and do different types of airdrops or claims or other stuff like that. Also considering it's multi-chain, it's also cheap. So we can play with what that looks like as well. So there's a lot of opportunity space that this opens up. But the first thing, the most immediate thing is do the joke race, which is by far the most fun thing that they're doing. And fun things in governance are extraordinarily rare, which is why I recommended it. And that's the spiel. So shilling is now recorded on a YouTube somewhere, which is great.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Tim. And Artem, I think, just posted a couple of links in the chat. I didn't know, Peyton, did you have any comments from the governance side?
Yeah, I guess I dropped a few random use cases in the chat there, but basically on our end, I think it's pretty cool. Like starting a joke race, there are a bunch of reasons you could do that, right? And then as people get familiar with the platform, then we can launch into these like fun sandboxing things if people want to use it. What's I guess particularly neat about JokeDAO from the governance standpoint, it's like unlike Snapshot, you don't need an ENS to like set things up and gate it that way. So like one of their big advantages is that anyone can make a proposal there, and set out the different rules, that sort of thing, which is another advantage of governance, because I know personally, like a lot of times people have proposals, it's really like, hey, I think this is a good idea, but I only want to do it if like, you know, there's broader community support, because I want to be a good steward of funds and, you know, all these other reasons. And that's great. It's great that people are seeking that input, but like our governance system isn't really designed for that type of input, right? It's designed to make final outcome changes. So you end up with these kind of weird signals that aren't really set to change anything. And it stems from the fact that people want more input, but don't have a great way to get it.
That's great, Peyton. Thank you. And just to recap, where again is this located? You said in the growth channel, Tim?
Yeah, the communications about the short-term and more long-term use cases are in the growth public channel in our Discord. And then Raphael, like I said, I'm going to bring him in for the forum post, which is literally just taking what JokeDAO wrote and then either being a part of that as a contributor or like putting it on the forum. They exist on all of the discourses everywhere because it is, again, a governance tool. And they're trying to get it in the hands of as many people as possible to see what it can do.
All right, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Tim, and thank you, Peyton, for those comments. Really appreciate that. We look forward to continuing conversation on that. Let's take a look then. Let's go back to the poll for this week. If you will, Les, is any other comments or questions about that particular subject? Anybody else want to chime in on that? I think Nadia was here. I know I don't know if there was anything she wanted to add from the growth. So, okay. All right, wonderful. So this week's topic poll was legal work on MIP65 Special Purpose Fund. We only had a few votes this week, so just wanted to open the floor to see if that's the topic I believe we want to get started with. Does anybody want to? I'll open the floor to see if anybody wants to get things started on that particular topic or other topics that you feel like we need to cover today. All right. I hear silence. I hear Raphael cheering it. Thank you. Everybody's cheering us. So,
hey, if you could hear me, can we get an update where MIP65 is, and if we can get an idea of what CES is doing, what strategic finance is doing? Because I spoke to Alan the last 24 hours, and he's adamant about having both teams work together to get MIP65 across the line, which is my goal. So 3F delegates goal. So what can you kind of explain to us from either core unit what exactly your roles are and how they're divided to get MIP65 across the finish line?
Yeah, thanks, Frank. I think we've got a couple of those folks here on the call. You guys want to chime in on?
Yeah,
So can we
talk
leave it
about
at-
this because this is the collateral
Sorry.
engineering services process. And so from a high level, Frank, how deep do you want to get into this? I can give you very specific details and line items and some timeframes that we're currently working with. So I can provide a lot of detail or just give you the high level. What would you like?
Deep dive.
Okay, so could you give me screen sharing privileges?
Yeah, I sure can. Hold on one sec there. Let me do that. Sebastian, sorry about that. We all decided to talk at one time. Well, let's we give everybody their opportunity. Let's go here.
Oh, I probably need to stop sharing mine, right?
I don't see a screen shared here, guys.
Wait,
Yeah.
I'm stopping.
All right. That was nice. Thank you, Raphael, for the music. That was really, really.
Welcome anytime.
Robert, you've got the co-host rights now. Go ahead.
All right, thanks everyone. Oh, let me find the sheet. I think it's this one. So everyone should be able to see what we term as the implementation sheet. If we want to cut to the chase, the bottom date we've targeted at the end of September to be able to, at this time, the earliest that we'd be able to pilot the 1 million transfer to Coinbase, and then followed with a series of transactions until the total amount is transferred. So leading up to that, we have a variety of activities that are currently underway, given in the CES core unit, with legal, with Monetalis, with the documentation that they're providing. So this is actively managed. I would encourage any of you to attend the Monday meeting, where we'll go in great detail about where this is specifically at. There are no major blockers. There's only work to be done.
All right. Thank you, Robert, for that. Frank,
Again, the dates are subject to change based upon factors outside of our control. Sometimes partners don't work with the same urgency that we do internally. And therefore, for example, if Coinbase or Signum decided to drag their heels a little bit, you could see some of these dates extend out. If there are concerns by the community, once some of the assessments are published, we might need to address those. There might be a need to go for a governance poll to bring clarification into the details of the MIP65, the implementation. We're hoping that's not the case. If that does happen, that could potentially add a little bit of time to this process. So just keep that in mind.
all right. Thank you, Robert. Frank, any questions or anyone else questions about Robert's information? Or
Yeah, and the legal review, if you kind of walk us through that, and whether that's CES or strategic finance, and kind of walk us how it's going to be used from the CES budget.
Yeah, so from let me start with a couple of things here. So first off, based upon the results of the poll that just completed, I published an update to give this not only group, but also the community a better understanding of the plan moving forward as it relates to our RWAs. And so I would encourage each of you to read this and ask questions when you have an opportunity, either in the forums or DM me, either way. But essentially is that we are now managing the holistically the implementation. When I say we, the collateral engineering services core unit, the domain teams, and the collateral stakeholders. So from that, I realized that there are other, you know, and as a core unit, I should mention that I do provide a little bit of information on what I believe to be the original intent of core units, of this decentralized, more autonomous, independent team that's able or gets to the point of being able to execute on very specific goals and have accountability. I think one of the strengths of core units is that there can be multiple core units that offer to do work. And if there's a conflict in that, then I think that the community, the MCAR holders, are the ones that decide how that should work. So as I position it, is that I really do look at all of the core units as resources, and effectively they're contractors, and they have the ability to provide those services or not. And so my goal going forward is to ensure that we have a pool of resources available to be able to help us with, especially with our RWAs, whether that's legal, deal, risk, credit, accounting. Because one of the things we don't want to do is we don't want to be dependent upon any one person or one group inside of the DAO to get things completed. So with that, yes, I'll turn it over to Seb, and he can give his updates from a strategic finance perspective on the legal aspect.
Yeah, thanks. So on MIP65 specifically, we had a call with Christian and Alan. We have a call every week with CS and all the boys and girls. But we had one call on the legal side, and we made quite some good progress. The trust documents, most of the documents are good. What we are working on, but we processed most of them, was a resolution, which we include in the legal side. And you might say, well, the resolution are not legal, but they are still a text and not code. So that's added to the list, and we are making much progress. And if you look at the Robert's slides, the main bottleneck, so most of the assessment will be done on the 5th of September. And then what will delay us is mainly writing the spell that takes 2 weeks or 3 weeks, don't remember. Because there is a lot of check and balances, and we cannot start writing the spell before we have all the verification.
All right, thank you. I'm going to go to Raphael, but first, Pete, did you have any comments on that? I think you said you had depends. I didn't know if you wanted to add to that before we went to Raphael on his question.
Just around exec timing, everyone always wants to know when is the exec going to go up, and the best we can do is say, well, if everything goes well, it'll be ready on this date. So just always a reminder that when you're talking about dates and stuff like that, to like usually about a 1 week kind of target period, just with engineering resources as they are.
All right, thank you, Peyton. Appreciate that. Raphael, I'm going to go. You have your hand raised. Do you have the floor?
Yeah, Robert, I wanted to know, is there a delay in this process now due to the situation, or basically were you able to even pick that up at the proposed pace?
I don't see any delay, and there really hasn't been, because Christian has continued to engage in the legal side of things. So as I mentioned, I don't see there's any significant blockers in the way of, wow, we have a gap here, but we don't have a solution. It's more of, we just need time to get the work done. You know, contract and legal take time to go through. Obviously, we have an internal governance process from the time the code is actually complete until we get to the executive. And then like the whole package that comes through in the way of the documentation. So there's just a lot to do. But I don't perceive there, and Sebastian, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't perceive there to be any blockers where we're waiting on anything. We're just chunking through the work.
Yeah, I can say we still took 1 month's delay, so that's not nothing. But now everything is under control, and we are working with Christian and Alan to get the legal side done. CS has already kind of finished, if I'm correct, the technical side. I reviewed the technical verification. There was some minor changes. We have the tech side. We are okay on the legal side. just some minor details to fix everything. And then 1 month for the spell development.
Yeah, I don't yet have, we had a CES and PE had a conversation before this meeting about the implementation and how we're proposing the 500 million transfer. And so I don't have an update with that yet, but on Monday, that'll be part of the CSI meeting. So again, I encourage you all to attend.
Good, Robert. Thank you. And I think we've got that on the calendar. Everybody should have access to that as well. All right. I'm going to open the floor if anybody has any more questions, comments on this topic.
Yeah, with regards to Coinbase, am I under the impression that this is a strategic finance initiative for CES? I feel like Alan's mentioned Monetellus, this legal structure they're using is something that's been done before with Coinbase. Is that right, or did I misunderstand them completely there?
I think you are going forward. Are you speaking about Coinbase being the exchange for USDC to USD?
Yeah, exactly. Is that initiative that you guys have taken or CES? I know, Robert, you mentioned you're going to try 1 million with Coinbase. So just trying to get the backstory there.
No, so what we discussed with Alan for a long time, for 3 months, is how to get the less cost for MakerDAO. So we negotiated, and that was with Adrian of SF as well, to get the lower cost on Bank Signum, but it's a bank, it's not their core business. And obviously, when you go to Coinbase, you get 0% fees, which is always better than 10 basis points, especially when you are $500 million. So Alan was kind enough to work with Coinbase so we can go through Coinbase. And we had some discussion at the Genesis, like, well, should we go to Coinbase through Coinbase, or should we go through Bank Signum, use DAI directly because they are freshly minted DAI, so less regulatory risky than USDC, and pay the price. And there was an internal discussion, you can check the videos, of thinking, well, should we let the community decide? Should we first work on? And we didn't cut this problem when Genesis showed that actually there was no problem whatsoever. But we are still keeping Signum now in the process as a backup in case of there is any issue at Coinbase. And obviously, community can chime in to say otherwise.
Yeah, I want to add some color here. Like, we have been working with the strategic finance, growth with the strategic finance on how to increase the strategies that we already have to get yield on the PSM. So we have been contacting different stablecoin providers, and with the help of strategic finance, we created a strategy thinking not just on USDC or Paxos USD or Gemini USD, but we think about the PSM as a whole. And that's something we want to discuss with the delegates, because we have different initiatives that we could do with these stablecoin providers to get yield. But of course, in most of the cases, as with all real world assets, we will need an entity that represents Maker. And that's why Monetalis is also involved in one of these initiatives. But we invited delegates for a meeting tomorrow to tell you a little bit more about this and talk about this in detail.
Yeah, there was plenty of other topics that strategic finance is working on, topic like that, but they are still confidential. So you got a teaser from Nadia.
Yeah, so just the learning that we also took away from HV Bank was having multiple brokers is probably a good thing, right? So here's learning applied forward. The other thing too is, Frank, you said something specific, and I want to address it as it relates to who's owning what. And I want to make it very clear that the CES mandate's very specific. If other core units want to spin up a collateral onboarding mandate, awesome. Please do so. because I think that's the essence of what core units are, is to have a level of redundancy to make sure that we don't have any single point of failure. So if we want to bring accountability into this process, and I think there's been a lot of that proposed with KPIs and all sorts of other mechanisms, is that we either have it or we don't. So either the responsibility lives somewhere or it doesn't, or if it's split, that's okay too. We just understand what that looks like. So anyone can propose to do collateral onboarding, but right now CES is the core unit that does that. So from a process and an technical implementation perspective, and also finding the resources when we have gaps or needs to be able to onboard a piece of collateral like legal or risk, accounting, whatever, that's something that is within our mandate and our responsibilities. So I hope that's clear, Frank.
Yes, it is. Thanks, guys. Appreciate
Okay,
the
thanks.
update.
Yes, thank you.
Robert?
Oh, go ahead,
Yeah,
Sebastian.
just to be
Go ahead.
clear on what are the responsibilities. Am I still deal captain, whatever the term means, because I never knew what it meant at the beginning, on MIP65 and backed? Or are you taking care of those?
I'm not sure what deal captain is. And I think maybe that was a term that was used with RWF. But as far as I've always said that once the application hits the queue, then effectively is that we're managing the process of that. And there are collateral stakeholders, Sebastian, which you are absolutely one of those. And there are also domain teams. The difference in the two is the domain teams do the actual work and have been identified by the DAO as the teams that are responsible to do work as well as report out in the way of assessments, as an example, or even giving opinions. So that's the current structure that we have. And I just want to make sure that we're clear on those responsibilities. And so as we chunk through this process, that's again, the stakeholders, the domain teams are part of that process. We facilitate that process and identify any gaps, and then also ensure that we're communicating with the community like we did today on the update as it relates to where collaterals are at in the system. There's the collateral management side of it too. We're not going to talk about that much on this call because I know we're focused on onboarding, but there's work, as I've outlined at a high level inside of the form post, that there's a substantial amount of work, especially in the RWA area, that we need to do a better job in the way of collecting data, reporting, and ensure that when something is or isn't happening, we're communicating that out. And the initial work is focused on RWAs, because I think there's plenty of data and teams that are focused on the decentralized collateral right now. So that's not going to be the initial focus of collateral management. RWAs will be.
All right. Thank you, Robert. Appreciate that. A lot of good information. Is any questions about what the next steps are, the meetings and everything? Does anybody have any questions regarding that? Didn't know if they want just open the floor to any other additional questions.
Yeah, I'm sorry for taking up a lot of the time here, but I was reading through your post there, Robert, and you're mentioning RWL deal signaling, and you said you're going to run, I guess, a signal request first of what type of RWA collateral types MakerDAO is willing to onboard. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, so that's one of the questions I have for this group, because we seem to have a lot of different opinions, and as now RWA proposal, applicants that are looking to put together something, the deals are across the board still. So I would like to be able to gain consensus on the types of collaterals, not arrangers and not the actual companies doing the work, the types of collateral that we want to signal to the broader community about what we want on board right now, and put that up for a poll, make it public and clear, and then we can radiate that out to ensure those are the deals that are coming in. It's not CES saying this is acceptable and not. This is the community saying this is what we want to see coming in at this time.
So kind of like an automation where perhaps it would be nice to get another regional bank in Nebraska, for lack of a better state. And it would be easier to onboard without our RWF core unit team, correct?
Correct. I mean, it's that we're not doing any deal origination. That's just not in our scope at this time. And so one of the ways around as a stopgap measure, or maybe even a permanent measure, is to work with the broader community to say, these are the types of deals that we want to see. Like if we want more bonds, let's just make sure that it's clear that we're looking for more bonds. Or if we're looking for ESG, then let's make sure that we're communicating the type of ESG deals that we're looking for.
All right, yeah, and Raphael is mentioning diversification of regions, which would be good too. So yeah.
All right. Frank, any other comments or questions? If not, we'll go over to Sebastian. I know he's got a hand raised there.
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, Sebastian, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on the SPFs that we propose. So there are two. There is the one on MIP65 that we still need to pay Christian at the end, get paid our salaries if not. And the second one is on backed finance, BIBTA, the ETF that is also on the MIP65 one. So just to give you some updates, the second SPF is currently at 50K. We are still running through some law firms to get some quotes. I think it should be fine to get 50K or a bit less, so meaning a weekly process, but we are still waiting confirmation from the US regulatory firm, which is LATAM on this one, one of the biggest law firms in the world, that we also used for every year regular set actually since the beginning. So we are still waiting on this one, and then we will push forward the SPF for backed finance. And I just wanted to have some feedback if some people think that we should just withdraw and stop the work on those collateral, or any feedbacks that you want.
All right, thanks, Sebastian. Any comments about his question? Any?
Yeah. So would it be possible, so before this goes to an on-chain poll, would it be possible to kind of give us an idea of what strategic finance will be asking from the legal team? So assuming it does get voted on, right, at this point, I mean, 3F delegate more than likely will support this, because I just don't see a better path forward unless somebody else has one to get a legal review of back finance. But with the current talk of maybe even Flashbots releasing this new MEV, I can't think of it now, but this new code that any proof of stake validator can use to censor certain blocks, right? Once we hit Ethereum 2.0 in September, hopefully, is there a possibility that the legal firm that you guys hire, or strategic finance, can kind of answer those kind of questions? If censoring certain Ethereum address should be a thing, or am I reading this wrong and back finance already has that figured out?
No, so you cannot figure that out. And I mean, it's the same thing in monetaries and back finance. So if there is a big regulatory backlash, both will be the same, because both are actually located in Switzerland. Bank Signum, which is a custodian of the ETF, is in Switzerland, and back finance is in Switzerland as well, because it's a beautiful country and a good legal setup. So on regulation side, they are at the same level, more or less. On the investment side, they are almost the same level, because it's the same underlying, at least for IBTA. So no difference. The main difference is that is issuing a structured product, which is called a certificate, on this token, on this ETF, making it an ERC20 and permissionless. And so on the Swiss firm, we have asked 4 law firms for quotes and get feeling with them, because we don't know them too much. The scope of work is really to see, well, please just make due diligence and tell us where are the risks, what back finance is wrong, and so on. And also to give us a short memo to, well, those are the risks that this DLT Act doesn't care too well. On the US regulatory side, actually international, but it's mainly in the US, what we want to see if using the current setup, what are the risks on the US side? We are not located in the US. Switzerland is not in the US. The intermediary will not be in the US neither, but we just want to be sure that what are all the risks that we can face. And Leighton pointed out one good risk that we didn't think of, and I don't know what are the risks. That's why we are paying someone a lot to find what are those risks. Dealing with securities, buying and selling through the PSM, or what we call the PSM, which is not a PSM, could expose us to the broker-dealer regulation. And so we need to be sure that we are just only buying for ourselves. And at some point, preferably after 1 year, we can sell. Because after 1 year, a private security become safe for SEC at least. So we will be outside of this regulation, which doesn't mean this regulation applies whatsoever, but it's always good to know, well, if we can be a bit more safe, even if it shouldn't apply, it's always better. And it's really to have all those kind of ideas and have a real view from the US regulatory perspective on what are the risks and what are the things we can do to limit the risk. But I don't think between monetarist and backed finance, it's more or less exactly the same risk. You can censor the transactions, but that means that there is some regulatory action against backed. And then the SEC can just send a letter to the bank signum saying we are financing terrorists or whatever.
Got it.
One of the
Go ahead.
other risk attributes here is that backed falls into again a hybrid category. So when we take a look from a process perspective, one of the things it begs for is an evaluation by our risk team. And immediately you're going to see some things that'll be challenging for us. And then if that assessment didn't pass, then it would follow more of the RWA implementation, which in many respects requires a counterparty, which there isn't one. So there's some other risks that are present that we'll have to understand, and as a community decide if we're willing to take those on. So there's a lot here.
What kind of risk?
Well, from a decentralized collateral perspective, it comes through that way. Working with something that is more of an ERC20 token with an organization that doesn't have any liquidity for the token. And if for whatever reason they disappear, what's our claim to the underlying asset?
Yeah, so yeah, it's true that usually if we are doing an ERC20, we are speaking mainly about liquidity, which in this case that might or might not. We forget about that, that is saying that there isn't, to take the worst case. And so it's not like a traditional ERC20, just like monetarist. Monetarist, if the intermediary, which is Coinbase, disappear, well, then we have a problem. So the problem is exactly the same here. It's more on the legal side. And for that, we need to be sure that we can redeem, or anyone can redeem through back finance, or if back finance is bankrupt, through the security agent. And that's, I would say, it's more on the legal side than the risk side, like we are dealing with liquidity on ETH or for Bitcoin.
The other obvious one is that because it carves out the US, and we just have to ensure that we're going to feel confident that because we're permissionless and we have no way to whitelist or blacklist. So there are some considerations there that obviously in the legal assessment, we're going to have to understand how that impacts us.
Yeah, I fully agree. But that's again on the legal side. So I don't know what risks you can provide or even not about finance.
No, I'm just pointing out the obvious, where as we run through this to ensure that we've got a hybrid piece of collateral, that we understand all of the potential risks if we continue to move forward, what that means. And, we're doing the due diligence now, so the community will decide if we're willing to take that risk on.
Yeah, and that's the whole idea, is to have a legal assessment made by professionals and publish it, and then community, as we decide on the CES. If there is something that seems risky, and that will not be a decision from strategic finance, it will be a decision from all the stakeholders of this meeting, collateral meeting, then we publish a signal request to see if community wants to go forward. Otherwise, we just move forward. And my question is it possible to move forward? Or will you be saying, well, we need, I don't know, reward finance to write an assessment, and they will not? And then what do we do? I don't want to spend cash from the MakerDAO if at the end there is a bottleneck that we can identify now and that we don't have a solution.
Well, as far as the process is that assessments are published and then we go to a governance poll. So that's just built in. And so once the assessments are published and the community gets the last look on yay or nay. And if it's yay, we just move forward with the implementation and go through the exec. So the question becomes, is that what is needed in the way of the assessments and who's doing what? And I think that's the thing that we'll start to talk about on Monday during the CSI call.
Yeah,
All right.
I just want to be sure that in 1 month, someone doesn't step up and say, oh, we need this one as well. And surprise, it's not possible to get it.
Yeah, I think we need to identify all of the pieces that are required in order to do a correct level of assessment and get that to the community, whatever that might look like. Yes.
All right. So thank you guys. I appreciate that conversation. Mark has got his hand raised. And I just also want to let everybody be mindful of the time. We've got about 10 minutes left. So Mark, I'm going to head to you, and then we'll open the floor for any last questions, comments. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, so just wanted to briefly comment on backed finance. I mean, my view is that we should be seeking to automate everything as much as possible. I recently listened to an interview with SPF, who said that on-chain treasuries and securities is going to happen, and there's progress being made in the U.S. even, which is the most difficult jurisdiction for this type of tokenization project to occur. So, maybe, and we're acutely aware of the risks as it relates to backed finance, but I think if we ever want, this to truly be a autonomous organization, we need to seek to automate everywhere and be on the cutting edge and pushing the boundaries here. And maybe we do all the legal due diligence and we decide to not pursue it any further. But I think we need to be constantly on the cutting edge of these products and understanding exactly how they work, all the legal considerations, because maybe one day there's actual law passed in major jurisdictions, and then it's, all the legal issues we run into go away. So, we are, making a little bit of an investment with an uncertain payoff on the legal sides. But I think given how we, at least the reason I'm here is for everything in the world to be tokenized, including every financial asset. And backed is, pushing the boundary there. And I think it's something that we should pursue. So, yeah, there's gonna be a lot of challenges being on the cutting edge of this, but I think we need to take this journey.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Going to move over to Raphael. You got your hand raised. You comments?
Yeah, on the backed finance, I was under the impression that even if backed disappears for some reason, others would step up to kind of offer redeeming services on that. Do you think that's a possibility, or?
Yeah, by construction, you can go to the security. Anyone holding this token can go to the security agent, which means as we are DAO, we cannot go because we don't exist, and that's our choice to not exist. But you can find any Swiss man actually to do the trade and take a little bit of a spread, or you can also use I don't know, Real World Asset Foundation. If monetaries go through, we will have a BVI structure, or the structure can be used to solve the same thing. And that, again, to be 100% sure that a security agent is not a startup. It's they try to improve it to get credit use, I think. Don't take my word for it. So credit free to keep it going nowhere, hopefully. And so anyone can go there, get KYC, and get cash back from the token.
All right. Thanks, Sebastian. Appreciate that. We've got, we do have about 10 minutes left in today's office hours. Didn't know if anybody had any more thoughts or questions about this topic. It's been a good discussion so far. Okay. All right. Well, with that said, I think we've got a few things that we want. We've got a meeting, some other things in the forums, got some things that we want to do for next steps. I'd like to open the floor to the delegates to see if there's any additional questions, comments, thoughts, or the folks on the call as well, as we got a few more minutes to talk. Now we've got our upcoming GNR call. The topic is going to be about the target level spending or target level spend. And also we're going to have should have good discussion on that. So the floor is open for anyone that'd like to chime in. All right. Well, let's see. We've got, again, a few more minutes. Anybody else have any parting thoughts for today? A lot of stuff going on in the chat. Okay. Yes, Raphael?
Oh, no, just thanks.
Oh.
Appreciate it, and see
All
you
right.
on the other side.
All right. Well, listen, thank you everyone for the great discussion today. We've got some things, again, some follow-up meetings, some follow-up discussions, some things out on the forum. Thanks for joining us. We hope to see you at the GNR call. See you soon.
Thanks, everyone.